Bueno, ¿vas bien? Vamos.
¿Qué hora es?
Las 5 de la mañana.
Ay, no sé ni cómo levantarme.
I don't buy bullets. I make my own bullets. We mask 150 grains with soft tip. We're ready to catch some bears today.
Only 3 years ago, black bears were considered a threatened species in Florida. Before the hunt, the Florida Fishing and Wildlife Conservation Commission estimated their population to be 3,500. Due to this increase, the FWC set up the first state bear hunt in 21 years, with a quota set to 320 bears. The commission sold 3,778 permits, equivalent to 12 hunters per bear.
La caza es un estilo de vida, sobrevivencia, saber cazar tu propia comida, saber prepararla, enseñarle a tus hijos el valor de lo que es la cacería.
Abdiel is an experienced hunter who's killed wild hogs and deer, and Rodolfo has some practice in the shooting range, but neither of them have hunted bears before. Two decades ago, when bear hunting was legal in Florida, Cash was one of the last hunters to kill a black bear.
There was not all of the fanfare about hunting bears in Florida back in 1994. There was very little to no protesters. It was all looked at as something that Florida was phasing out. So because it was going to be the end, I don't think it drew the attention like this is drawing because they're opening it back up again. Hunting means to me a part of a family tradition that goes back in Florida to 1840s when my family first settled here. And now that we're coming upon Florida's first bear hunt in 21 years, I think it's important that we participate in it. I want my daughter to participate in it.
According to the FWC, residents' bear-related complaints nearly doubled in the last 8 years. Those in favor of the hunt have used this increase in bear encounters as a primary reason to justify the hunt. In 2015, there have been 4 reported bear-human encounters in Florida, none of which resulted in casualties or serious injuries. Opponents of the bear hunt, like environmentalist Chuck O'Neill, argue that bears are naturally attracted to the garbage that residents leave in the open.
At one time, there were 11,000 to 12,000 bears in the state. So they have been in much larger numbers in the state. We have 19 million people. We have 3,500 bears. No one on the Florida Wildlife Commission can convince me that we can't coexist. You know, we put out a smorgasbord every week called Garbage Day. Bears don't know lot lines or subdivisions. So the way to change it is to put bear-proof trash cans, remove the attractants in the subdivisions, and let their food source flourish where we want them to be, which is in the state parks and the state forest.
The hunt was supposed to be open for a week. It allowed female bears to be killed as long as their cubs were absent, a policy that differs from other states. Bears also had to weigh more than 100 pounds to be taken. No bait or dogs were allowed to aid the hunters. More than 40,000 people asked the FWC to cancel the hunt, but the season still opened. So Chuck O'Neill organized a group of volunteers to make sure the rules were being followed.
We organized approximately 200 volunteers around the state to work shifts at the 33 check stations where the dead bears were brought, to just monitor. In the course of that exercise, we've learned a lot of things. We've learned about these lactating females being brought in. We've learned that cubs underweight were shot. The rules that they set up did not work. They were a complete failure.
An 88-pound cub was killed during the season. The hunter who pulled the trigger only received a warning. Another hunter killed a 42-pound cub. This case is still under investigation. When mother bears are killed, their cubs have to fend for themselves, leaving their future uncertain. All of these hunters that actually went against the rules, what are the penalties for these hunters?
I can't tell you exactly what each one is, but whatever it is, it's going to be taken very seriously. And you know, we really encourage all the hunters that had gotten bear permits to make sure that they were representing the hunting community in an ethical manner, that the world was going to be watching.
Lisa Pretty, the vice chairman of the FWC, was one of the commissioners who voted in favor of the hunt. She's an experienced hunter and even purchased a license to hunt a black bear this year. Did you hunt a bear?
I did not.
I heard you got a license.
I did get a license. I never intended to hunt one.
Do you allow hunters on your property?
Yes.
Do you charge for the privilege to hunt in your property?
We have friends and family that hunt, but there are some hunts that take place that, you know, people pay to do it.
Some people say that precisely that situation is a conflict of interest because of your position of the FWC. What do you have to say about that?
Well, there's a lot of people that charge for hunting in Florida.
But they're not members of the FWC.
Well, that's true, but you have to remember I'm only one of 7 commissioners. We all vote the way that we think is best. You could say that any commissioner that fishes or hunts at all, it would be a conflict of interest.
Sí, yo creo que le pegué en el pecho. This is a trophy, you know, for me, as a first-time hunter. I don't feel really, you know, I don't feel guilty at all. It's just because this is a sport. We had to remove this animal from here and take him to the checkpoint because they have to be checked and be registered. So that is what is next right now.
In a recent article in the New York Times, I read that you said that it was actually that it was really hard to hunt a bear.
Right.
That it was highly unlikely that the hunters were going to reach the 320 quota in the first 2 days.
Right.
But as you know, that's precisely what happened. In 2 days, they reached the quota.
Well, came close to the quota total for the state.
Yeah.
Well, I think what happened in the what we call the Eastern Panhandle is there were so many more bears than we ever anticipated. And as you pointed out earlier, that's one of the areas that had the older population count. And I think just because there were just so many bears that it was apparently easier for the hunters to go out and harvest a lot more in a shorter period of time than we anticipated.
The 320 bears that were allowed to be killed were distributed among 4 areas in Florida. But the numbers were based on a population census that hadn't been completely updated since 2002. In the East Panhandle area, for instance, 40 bears were allowed to be hunted, but more than 100 were killed. Opponents to the hunt argue that the Commission didn't have the necessary data to oversee a scientifically responsible hunt, and that too many licenses were sold.
Well, the way it was designed is insane. It's not just wrong. To sell an unlimited number of licenses, each entitled to take 1 black bear for $100.
How many licenses they sold?
Over 3,700.
3,700 licenses.
More licenses than bears.
With no end to the controversy in sight, the FWC announced that it plans to open the hunt again next year, and every year after that. Environmentalists, on the other end, promise to do everything in their power to put an end to the killing.